I'm no naval historian, but I know historically speaking, HMS Rodney was the only battleship equipped with torpedoes to ever record a torpedo hit on an enemy vessel. The thing is, though, the enemy vessel was another battleship, namely the Bismarck, after it had dev-struck HMS Hood, and the British understandably wanted to get revenge, so they sent practically everything they had after the Bismarck, and Rodney was one of those assets that found it near the end of its journey after I think its rudder or its steering gears or engine or something had been disabled, and it was either dead in the water or it was trapped sailing in a circle. Rodney managed to torpedo it, which helped send it to the bottom. In this battle for World of Warships Legends with HMS Rodney, we're going to record at least one torpedo hit too, but it's not going to be against a battleship. Spoiler alert, although I'm sure the thumbnail already indicated that to you. Before we get to that part, though, a lot of things are going to occur in this match, and we're going to make a little bit of a mess of things while playing the Rodney. I'll try to point out the errors that we make as they occur. I just think this game could have been played a little bit better on my part in retrospect, and there were some things I didn't notice when they were happening. I'll try to point those out too, but ultimately, HMS Nelson is still, to this day, my most played ship in the game. I have somewhere north of 500 battles in that vessel, 18,000 or 19,000 battles total, by the way. Fairly small percentage. I'm not one of those players that has multiple thousands of battles in a single ship. Variety is the spice of life, but my experience in Nelson, I think, makes Rodney sort of intuitive to me, I suppose. They are sister ships, and this thing handles much like Nelson. Speaking of which, one of my favorite things to do in HMS Nelson is to hunt down and sink enemy destroyers. Nelson is equipped to do that with excellent HE. Rodney's HE, in comparison, is a little bit more anemic. Although a 5K alpha strike on the HE shells is still enough to do a lot of damage to enemy destroyers, the fire chance at 32% is not great though, which is why primarily I shoot AP in the Rodney. Speaking of which, we've got AP headed toward the enemy Kagero. Didn't want to shoot at the Picardy because we just bounced off his bow. Harlem back there, whatever. Destroyers are going to be the more valuable target to shoot at, and we do manage to take 1,200 HP off Kagero. Keep that in mind. That'll be relevant later. Note also that that is a 2 HP bar Kagero, so he's got maybe 10k at the most. Meanwhile, we're headed toward the Charlie Cap, which has been secured by the blue team, but is being contested by an enemy Miyoko. And there's also the second enemy destroyer somewhere out here on this flank, a Paolo Emilio, who is also going to come into play a little bit later. Picardy goes down in the center. We try to sneak a shot against Harlem, but the main goal here is to try to get the Miyoko. He was last spotted headed in this direction. I've obviously been spotted this whole time, so I was hoping he was going to come around this island and try to do something. We're going to approach the gap here, knowing that the Miyoko is almost certainly going to come around the corner of the island, and hopefully we'll be able to secure the dev strike. We thought he was going to be coming around the corner of this island, but no. It turns out instead he's going to be coming around the corner of the island further forward in just a moment as we're caught by his sonar. There he is. Not quite enough time to traverse the turrets and get the dev strike, but that's okay. We'll engage in a tactical beaching, but we've got a little bit of a problem with the position we've dug ourselves into. The Miyoko has deployed sonar, and so he's spotting us with the sonar, which means he's going to be able to see our every move. And there's a wide open gap right here that he could launch torpedoes down, so we need to be cautious. On top of that, the sonar spotting is allowing the Harlem from the center to drop us with airstrikes. Maybe not the biggest problem, especially if he doesn't land the airstrikes well enough. However, we don't want to take repeated hits from those. We do have a super heal to fall back on, though, so HE damage and fire damage, neither of those things are really a factor for Rodney. Torpedoes certainly are, though. And so this is a huge risk that we're going to take here as we avoid a optimistic torpedo salvo from that Kagero. This is a huge risk going broadside through this gap. There are the torpedoes, but only two. One of them must have clogged on an island or got hit. I don't know. We dev strike the Miyoko, though. He does hit us with a torpedo, and it's fine. 13,000 damage, not that big of a deal. We've still got all four of our super heals ready to go. We're going to beach ourselves on this island again, and we are still spotted, which has to be the Paolo Emilio. And I couldn't tell, really, if he was spotting us from open water, but I don't think that's the case. The Charlie Cap is still contested, and obviously the enemy battleship is not inside of it. He's near an island over there, and we've got a friendly destroyer who's pushing himself into that battleship, which led me to believe that that destroyer was probably going to sink. And at this point, the enemy team has already sunk 4 of the blue team, and we've only sunk 2. We are outnumbered, and if we lose that destroyer, I felt like we were going to be in big trouble. So, we want to get out of this cap. I think the Paolo was proxy spotting us through the island. I don't know if he's got the RGA mod or he was just close enough to be within 2 km. He's spotting us again, I think, or that could be the Kagero from the center of the map. Hard to tell. But one thing I noticed was 2 enemy battleships pushing into our spawn from the Alpha Cap. So I initially thought we're going to go back toward our spawn, and those battleships appear to be pushing into a cruiser that has kited to the map border. So maybe they're going to be giving broadside to my position if I can get there quick enough. We've got the engine boost deployed, but ultimately those battleships are changing course. They're pointed toward our spawn, toward the center of the map, and they are no longer broadside to our position. There's Paolo, not much of a threat. He's not going to be coming after us. We briefly spot Harlem in the center, and the friendly destroyer manages to take down, well, almost take down one of the battleships. I think ultimately he's going to end up taking down both, so we don't have to worry that much about the Nagato or the Borodino. However, my prediction did come true. The friendly destroyer did go down, YOLOing the North Carolina, and he didn't take the North Carolina with him. However, somebody else takes out the enemy Borodino, and the Nagato is going to be well on his way back to port. He's being farmed by 2 cruisers. So we need to make something happen here, and I figured we could push into this cap and engage in the Nelson Shuffle. Now, the Nelson Shuffle only works when you don't have battleships to worry about getting citadels on your broadside. You also don't want cruisers on your broadside either. And if the destroyer smokes up, as the Kagero did, that will give you a huge advantage, provided you're not being spotted by anything else. We need to take down the Harlem, and perma-destroying one of his main battery guns is a nice start, but he needs to sink. Or he's behind the smoke screen, so theoretically we could go dark. If we're dark, Kagero's not necessarily going to know where to launch his torpedoes, but Harlem does have sonar, and he ends up spotting us with it, so we can't go dark, we have to sink him. Main battery guns back on his bow, which we can overmatch, not quite enough. Third gun out, he goes down for our second kill of the game, and there's the Kagero torpedoes, which we don't avoid. However, oh my gosh, what a predicament. That's so unfortunate. The most unfortunate beaching to possibly ever occur in World of Warships Legends. Dev strike with a torpedo. One single solitary torpedo from a battleship against a destroyer. That has got to be painful if you're the Kagero. I'm almost tempted to apologize, but of course I won't. That was just too good to not put on YouTube. I don't think I've ever accomplished something so satisfying in all 6 years of playing World of Warships Legends, except maybe one time when I torpedoed a DD with the Mutsu at Tier 5, sort of similar to this, where it only launches 1. In any case, taking out the Harlem and the Mutsu, along with the 2 cruisers taking out the Nagato, has really turned the tide of this battle. We're going to have to take out Cleveland and then turn around and head back toward Charlie for North Carolina. Cleveland, though, is an American cruiser, so of course we're not allowed to dev strike him like we did the Miyoko earlier. It's going to take 2 shots, But we do solo secure the Bravo cap, which is going to net us some healthy XP. And I doubt Cleveland is surviving one more shot from these main battery guns. It would just be nice if we could get a Citadel, but no, the game doesn't even give us a Pitadel, but we do get our 4th kill. And now the friendly cruiser is going to be able to secure Alpha, which leaves just the North Carolina and the enemy Paolo Emilio left floating, both of whom were spotted near the Charlie cap. Speaking of which, we are currently spotted now, which indicates that the Paolo Emilio is inside of the Charlie cap, or maybe he's off to the island over there on the left. You see how we went dark as we got near this island, and it blocked the line of sight from the gap between the island to the left and the one directly in front of us. Could mean that Paolo is there. We're trying to get the Kraken on the North Carolina. Almost did, but it's not going to happen. We've got a friendly cruiser that's also trying to farm him with much quicker reloading HE, and so we are left with a fist. Normally I'm happy about that, but after dev striking a destroyer with a torpedo, I really wanted to go for the Kraken. Now, I don't know exactly where Paolo is. We're not spotted, and as we approach the Charlie cap, which to be fair is a little bit reckless, we're going to get spotted again. So that, I think, means Paolo is still inside of the Charlie cap, but he could still be directly in front of us. It's hard to tell. My teammates, though, are going to end up pinging somewhere on the map, which is temporarily going to confuse me. But look at that. Do you see off to the right-hand side of the screen those shells that emerged from the Charlie cap? Yeah, I didn't see those at the time, but I did see that ping on the minimap on the part of the team. And I wondered if they were indicating that they had reason to believe that Paolo Emilio was over there. I mean, theoretically, he could be. Unlikely, because the friendly cruiser didn't spot him, but we're dark, and so he very well could be on the other side of this island to the left. That's why I've got my guns pointed in this direction, and that's why I'm looking at this island due to that ping. But of course, my teammates are 100% incorrect. The Paolo is nowhere near that part of the map. In fact, you might not ever think this. It's very odd, but he's still in the same location where he was last spotted. He spent literally the entirety of this game in the Charlie cap after having taken it, I suppose. I don't know exactly what the plan is. Maybe he's waiting for an ambush. But as soon as we get into this cap and we realize it's contested, we're going to know exactly where Paolo is. We've got the HE loaded, unlike against that Kagero, who, to be fair, if he hadn't beached himself on this island, on that island in the Bravo cap, he could have taken us out. He hit us with the initial set of torpedoes and saved the other one for our broadside. If we had gotten all 9 of our AP shells into him, though, he might have gone down before he was able to launch the torpedoes. This time, though, we're not going to be taking any chances. There's Paolo. He's spotted. Another opportunity to land another torpedo on a destroyer, but of course we've got that Miyoko next to us who can take out the Paolo with his guns, so we're not going to let him. We're going to secure the Kraken with our guns. There goes Paolo. There's the end of the battle. A bit of tide turning in this one. 1 million credits earned. 3,570 base XP. And perhaps one of the most satisfying results I've ever gotten in any ship in 6 years of playing World of Warships Legends. I'm just glad that even 6 years on, I can still get this much enjoyment out of the game. It's really incredible. Hope you enjoyed this video. If so, give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.